Security. Get this black woman out of my sight. She's contaminating the air I breathe. The insult didn't just slice the air, it weaponized it. Cracked through the polished din of the gala like a gunshot, muffled only by couture. Sloane Whitfield, the billionaire's mistress, didn't even dignify Brianna Underwood Montgomery with eye contact when she said it. No pause, no hesitation, no acknowledgement of existence. She just snapped her manicured fingers' perfect nails, painted a sharp, diamond white-like, summoning an underpaid spirit to collect garbage no one wanted to touch. The gesture was deliberate, a ritual of dismissal. As if calling a servant to take out trash was too generous a fate for a woman like Brianna. But Brianna Underwood Montgomery wasn't trash. She was 7 months pregnant, her body cradling new life, her heart still carrying shards of hope, too stubborn to die. And shockingly, tonight she was wearing a $15,000 gown at a charity gala hosted under her own husband's name, not a borrowed name, her own husband's legacy. Sloane, of course, was unmoved. She floated at the top of this hierarchy of cruelty like gravity bent to her favor. Brianna stood frozen, 7 months pregnant, luminous, ripened by the miracle she carried, yet chilled by the absence of human decency around her. Her emerald gown shimmered under ballroom light like a soft forest fighting to exist in a city that paved over nature just to prove it could. Her diamonds sparkled, her belly kicked, but her voice trembled. Sloane, please. I'm Richard's wife. I organized this wife. The sentence hung odd in phrasing, but perfect in pain, the kind of grammar heartbreak writes when coherence checks out early. Sloane laughed, not a giggle, not a gasp. A laugh built for balconies, loud and sharpened, rehearsed by privilege, amplified by entitlement. She leaned toward Brianna's face, smiling with a sweetness that smelled like expensive perfume and rotted intentions. Honey, you're not a wife. You're a diversity project that expired. A brutality delivered like brand ambassadorship. The guests, 200 guests, expensive to the bone and silent to the soul, watched it land and did nothing. Their hush was part of the decor. Their neutrality paid for by Montgomery capital. Their stillness bred in institutions that never taught them courage because they never needed it stocked. But oh, they did need entertainment. Sloane Whitfield supplied it in steady doses. None of them had any clue that this was only the opening act, because before the Montgomerys finished celebrating their little victory, a $50 million private jet would descend onto their private runway in the Hamptons, and the billionaire's pregnant black wife, the same one they had just watched be socially slaughtered in satin, was not landing there to forgive, forget, fold, or fade. She wasn't coming to beg. She was coming to balance the world. Because the moment of humiliation didn't end in humiliation. It ended in ignition. And her brother's 3 brothers, carved from pride, as pain, shared blood, shared storm, shared rage, would step out onto that runway like a prophecy filing a lawsuit against arrogance itself, and they weren't there to beg. 6 hours before that satisfies, a redundant chant in the narrative. Chaotic in placement, but rich in symbolism. Like a heartbeat glitch, looping itself forward through time and protest, hunger and purpose. Almost like destiny, whispering that satisfaction was in tea, a reward for the powerful, it was a verdict for the wronged. Moment in the ballroom, Brianna was exactly where she was said to belong. And yet 862 babies whispered otherwise. Because 6 hours before the ballroom cruelty crowned itself, Brianna Underwood Montgomery was exactly where she believed human beings truly belonged, not surrounded by glittering contempt, not exiled by misfortune, lubricated with privilege, but standing in a room where life screamed louder than cruelty, where love perspired real effort, where humanity didn't cost admission. She was inside a delivery room at Lenox Hill Hospital, holding the hand of a terrified first-time mother like a lighthouse refusing darkness permission to approach shore. She bent toward the trembling woman, not as Manhattan royalty, not as Forbes-adjacent legend, but simply as a Harvard-educated healer with a stethoscope soul and surgeon-sharp compassion. "You're almost there," Brianna whispered, her voice steady and warm, a cadence that could have calmed wars. "One more push. Your daughter wants to meet you." The baby arrived at 4:47 p.m., screaming like all newborn queens do, healthy, alive, triumphant, a miracle wrapped in 7 pounds of new life. No white gloves required, no applause necessary, The sound of life itself served standing ovation. The mother grabbed Brianna's hand, crying the kind of tears no diamond could replicate, no gala could monetize, no betrayal could auction. Thank you.
Oh.
You're the only nurse who made me feel like a person instead of a number. And Brianna, not the empire, not the foundation, not the fortune, just Brianna smiled. No flicker, no filter, no facade. Everyone deserves to feel that way, especially on the most important day of their life. Yes, she had delivered 862 babies. Yes, she had built a literacy program that taught 10,000 children to read. Yes, she had married into a $3.2 billion empire. Yes, her husband was Richard Montgomery III. Manhattan royalty, Manhattan legacy, Manhattan reckoning, waiting to happen. But tonight, none of that would matter to the people sharpening their silence and polishing their prejudice in the Monarch Grand Ballroom. Tonight, she was supposed to be invisible. Invisible women don't get brothers arriving from $50 million jets. Invisible heroines don't walk toward the stage like the marble floor is counting down to justice. And yet Sloane Whitfield, darling, had no clue. Because this wasn't just humiliation. It was incubation. It was calculation. It was domestic revenge, fermenting into generational retribution. It was the beginning of the moment when the world learns the most dangerous person in any ballroom is not the one who snapped their fingers. It's the one who stood frozen and said, enough. Her smile flickered for just a heartbeat before snapping back into place. Like a fragile hologram recalibrating itself after briefly glitching at the sight of a force it never anticipated. The room didn't exhale, yet its collective breath was still trapped behind ribs layered in silk. Cashmere and entitlement. Security. It appears we have an uninvited guest approaching the stage. The words floated from Sloane Whitfield, billionaire mistress and self-proclaimed gatekeeper of prestige, like a velvet rope materializing out of sheer arrogance. The disdain was casual, practiced, and unpunctuated with hesitation. The kind of dismissal only people born inside high society's oxygen tanks can exhale without conscience. But Brianna Montgomery kept walking. Brianna Underwood Montgomery, 7 months pregnant, backbone laced in iron, face set like a nation bracing for siege, didn't slow, didn't blink, didn't even register the title of guest being stapled to her existence. The sound of her heels wasn't just footwear contacting marble. It was percussion, clock. A verdict counting steps until history gets physical. I'm not a guest. I'm his wife, and this is my program. Her voice was silk-soaked in steel. Elegant, but immovable. Not loud, but lethal. Calm, but incendiary. The sentence landed with a weight custom-built for hurricanes. And suddenly the guard's 2 staff members, representing the tower's illusion of order, hesitated, looking between Sloane and Richard Montgomery III. Their hesitation wasn't hesitation at all. It was fear of having to choose a side in a war everyone else already silently financed. Richard Montgomery III was suddenly fascinated by his champagne glass. That detail alone was a dissertation in cowardice generations deep. He swirled the golden liquid like it held architectural secrets more interesting than his wife's survival. The glass glittered. He glittered, both hollow. Both owned by banking infrastructure that never taught admiration for anything it didn't already possess. Sloane descended from the stage, white dress flowing like a battle flag, hem whispering conquest, and body language shouting coronation. The optics were intentional, the choreography immaculate. She didn't just walk toward Brianna, she marched, fueled by legacy power, curated cruelty, and the belief that whiteness could substitute deity itself. She stopped directly in front of Brianna, close enough that her perfume became an atmospheric assault. It invaded personal space like a hostile takeover. Brianna Montgomery wasn't breathing perfume anymore. She was being forced to inhale strategy, malice, and generational sabotage. You're embarrassing yourself, Sloane hissed. You're embarrassing him. You think because you married money, you belong in rooms like this? The questions were rhetorical missiles. Each one barbed, caffeinated with disdain, sharpened by self-interest, and engineered to humiliate. Sloane then gestured at the chandeliers, champagne towers, designer gowns, every object a monument to exclusion disguised as celebration. You don't. You never did. Each sentence severed invisible threads holding up the lie of acceptance, and then boomed the kill shot, You're just a little black girl from Newark who got lucky for a while, and luck always runs out." The guests didn't gasp. They approved by standing still. Their silence filled the parentheses with inheritance, racism, class protection, and social embalming. But Brianna Underwood Montgomery inhaled slowly and said, calmly but terminally, "I'm not leaving." The words didn't beg. They bled sovereignty, not drama, not spectacle, not negotiation. A nation refusing colonization. "Yes, you are." The certainty in Sloane's voice suggested she may have believed herself, but what happened next would be broadcast on every major news network within 24 hours. Because humiliation of a black woman doesn't conclude with humiliation. It's not in stories where lineage speaks louder than prejudice. In stories like these, humiliation only functions as the starting pistol for a family fueled by pride and unity, built not by money, but loyalty and fire. Now came the dagger moment. Wearing heirloom gloves, Sloane placed her hand on her own stomach, mirroring the same gesture Brianna made 100 times a day. But where Brianna's touch meant protection, Sloane's meant replacement. "You need to leave," Sloane announced, loud enough for nearby tables. "Because I'm carrying something you could never give him. A real heir. A child with pure Montgomery blood." She paused, letting prejudice pour in the gap. But she didn't finish the sentence. The silence finished it for her. The room supplied punctuation, as if cellular biology obeyed hierarchy. As if bloodlines determine worth. As if black women can deliver 862 babies, but still be denied womanhood when an empire needs protection from equality. Brianna Montgomery felt the words like physical blows. Her vision blurred like someone pumped cameras full of rainwater and aimed them at her dignity. The world didn't soften, but her instinct did what instinct always does when a predator reveals itself amid ultrasound of cruelty. Her hands moved instinctively to protect her belly, her baby. It's not heir to reputation, not Montgomery asset, just her baby. "Richard," she whispered, one last desperate plea. And this is the point cinema would beg for music, but narrative instead offered truth. Richard Montgomery, Billionaire. Forbes 400 royalty and master strategist of silence, looked at his wife Brianna. The woman he chased for 6 months, married into Scaniony, carrying his child. And finally looked directly at Brianna Underwood Montgomery, saying nothing. His silence wasn't absence, it was participation, the kind only families like the Montgomery dynasty treat as a signature. Then came violence wearing designer intent printed in italics. Sloane shoved Brianna with both hands hard. Brianna stumbled backward, heel catching the hem. And then impact. Sloane's designer stiletto connected with Brianna's pregnant belly. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't a stumble. It was curated assault, an aristocratic permission slip. Brianna fell, her gown tore fabric, screaming betrayal louder than any human in that room. Her hands clutched her stomach as she hit the cold marble floor. 200 phones recorded it. 200 witnesses financed it. 200 voices sanctioned it without opening their mouths. The only morality came from those who weren't paid enough to afford apathy. A waiter dropped his tray. Glass shattered. Sound not polite, not curated, not aristocratic. The glass crash felt different from the silence. Because glass breaking means something broke, yes. But silence breaking means the world changes shape. Then came Richard Montgomery III's move toward Brianna. For a heartbeat, Brianna Montgomery hoped he might be human. He said 862 babies. She delivered miracles. But hospitals never prepared her for men who auctioned silence instead of love. "Brianna," he said, voice flat as image lost compression. "Just go home. We'll talk about this later." Later. Later hit Brianna harder than air, because later is a promise only villains afford. Suddenly enters her first ally not wearing minimum wage empathy. A young staff member whispered about her identity like forbidden mythology. And then, now-seated Brianna Underwood Montgomery meets Detective Iris Coleman, tall, black, natural-haired, and justice-lined in shrewd empathy, representing the investigative force of the NYPD. Her shame-cracked earlier facade of neutrality. "I didn't want to cause a scene," Iris said. "That's not an excuse," Brianna replied. Then for the first time that night, someone acted instead of strategized. She took her to Lenox Hill Hospital for fetal safety. Inside the hospital, airless lights replaced chandeliers of prejudice. Infectionless antiseptic replaced perfume that summoned servants. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, trusted obstetrician of Nigerian American. Heritage whispered diagnosis like prophecy, shaping itself for upcoming revenge that would rewrite headlines, finances, family, and empires that underestimated siblings with shipping infrastructure hiding behind justice-lined boardrooms. Midnight there felt like a world where Brianna Underwood Montgomery still existed. But 90 minutes later, Richard Montgomery III returns. Not with empathy, but ownership rituals. A manila folder dropped. Annulment papers. Not divorce annulment. Not dissolution. Erasure. $500,000 offered. Reputation tax? Yes. But insult to lineage? Not for Underwood brothers. Because outside the Montgomery dynasty's glowing windows, destruction wasn't halfway. It was ignition stage, in a story where Brianna Montgomery didn't die by humiliation, stiletto, folder, or financial exile. No, she was activated by it. The most dangerous people in any empire aren't the ones who erase others. It's the ones who refuse to be erased. The phrase "the pregnancy was entirely her idea," not mine, wasn't just defensiveness. It was self-exoneration written in emotional fine print. Brianna Underwood Montgomery pulled her hand away like she'd touched something lassa fever. A reflex born not of fear but disgust for a conspiracy wrapped in perfume and dynasty politics. Her voice was unshaking. Now it was connecting dots fast enough to redraw a family tree in a courtroom sketch. "You orchestrated everything," she said, eyes narrowing, soul sharpening. "The affair, the humiliation tonight, all of it." Gloria Montgomery, matriarch of the Montgomery dynasty, didn't flinch. Not one micro-expression slipped. Her ancestors had built empires, but none had built the capacity for shame. She let the silence weigh in Brianna's favor, like an unlicensed verdict. The room turned cold, as if prejudice itself had central air. "I protected my family, my bloodline, my legacy," Gloria said, straightening her Chanel suit. "Because I'm black?" The grammar bent, but the racism was load-bearing, a structural violation dressed in philanthropy. She then completed the thought with ancestral brutality. "Because you don't belong. Because your children would dilute a bloodline that has remained pure for 7 generations. Because every time I saw you at a Montgomery function, I saw everything my ancestors built being contaminated by your presence." The mask was off. The monster revealed. The gala itself was just a prologue. Gloria Montgomery didn't negotiate, she commanded futures like infrastructure. "So here's what happens next," she said, pacing like an audit. "You sign those annulment papers, you take the money, you disappear permanently, and in exchange, I won't destroy what little remains of your pathetic life." The words were eviction notices notarized by Dynasty Oxygen. But Brianna Underwood Montgomery didn't fold, and villains never brace for siblings. Her phone rang. Unknown, but soon known as salvation itself. The voice belonged to Malcolm Underwood, CEO of the Titan logistics empire, Underwood Global Logistics. "Bree, it's Malcolm," he said. "Don't say anything. Just listen carefully. Calm, controlled. A voice trained by war rooms that didn't run on rumors. The lawsuit is fake. We created it ourselves. We needed Montgomery and his people to believe we were vulnerable and distracted. Malcolm, what are you?" The reveal detonated like classified thunder. "We've known about Gloria's campaign against you for 6 months. We've known about Sloan for 2 years. We've been waiting patiently for them to make their move. Triumph doesn't scream first. It lands quietly in SUVs. At 3:17 p.m., Brianna Underwood Montgomery finally reclaimed agency, not by wealth, but family arrival choreography. The mission was not rescue. It was reclamation. Her brothers exited a Gulfstream G700 sleek black, predation-proof in its intent to land justice, not permission slips. The jet itself didn't land on runway acreage. It landed on narrative stakes big enough for CNN, Hampton's betrayal, empire collapse arcs. Malcolm stepped out first. He wore a bespoke billion-dollar gait. Behind him came Desmond Underwood, co-founder of the Capital Fortress, Underwood Capital, finishing a call, initiating an institutional freeze. Then came Isaac Underwood, senior civil rights counsel at the ACLU. His briefcase carried not documents but generational receipts of reputation violence.
Nice.
Richard tried to classify it. That's market manipulation. That's securities fraud. That's illegal. But Malcolm replied with a smile that revoked warmth, but least consequences, actually. It's none of those things. We didn't file anything publicly, we simply ensured the right rumors reached the right ears. The very brilliance of psychological warfare is legality's alibi when truth is undefeated. Richard Montgomery III shook an empire underestimating pedigrees it didn't finance. Who? Who are you? Richard demanded. Malcolm Underwood, he said, letting the name echo like a memorandum delivered in thunder. These are my brothers, Desmond and Isaac. And then lineage. Reveal. And the woman UV spent 3 years trying to destroy Brianna Underwood Montgomery. She's our little sister. Their bond wasn't gilded. It was juridical. Brianna's didn't dilute dynasties. She detonated them. And on terrace acreage, silence finally broke. The gasp aged the morning. It gets considerably worse, Isaac announced, opening the leather briefcase with a slow reveal cadence worthy of courtroom noir optics. Within it lay 36 months of strategy payments, paper trails, metadata intact, certified by auditors unafraid of Forbes footnotes. Iris Coleman, investigative force of the NYPD, already saw the scene decades earlier in pregnant belly kicks and prejudice-goaded funding gestures. I have documentation of 17 wire transfers, annual revenue frozen, repudiation testimonies recorded by household staff whose wages couldn't buy apathy. Gloria Montgomery shifted colors. White gives gray. Empire evictions denied by siblings arriving from a black SUV parked with nod-level solidarity coded like ledger justice. And then legend confirmed, Brianna Underwood Montgomery didn't inherit her belonging. She proved it through family arrival choreography. Justice-coded rumor architecture that was never illusion but strategy beyond ROI. And you? Isaac Underwood's civil rights legal war machine walking in tailored justice turned toward Sloan like a judge flipping a verdict before the trial even starts. Sloan Whitfield. Birth name Sloan Barrett, daughter of Victor Barrett, the fallen monarch of logistics and former CEO of Barrett Logistics. The moment the ghost of her past was spoken aloud, Sloan's social armor designed by PR money and malicious optimism collapsed inward like a skyscraper wired to detonate from the ground floor. How do you know that name? She snapped, throat tightening, pulse betraying her before her face could hide it. The sound of panic wasn't in her scream, it was in her urgency to control the narrative slipping out of her hands. Isaac answered her anyway, the reveal loaded like a freight container full of consequences. Your father's company collapsed after losing a major bidding war to Underwood Global in 2014. That bidding war, won by the sibling fortress of Underwood Global Logistics, had been legal, ethical, and commerce clean, but Sloan's memory translated competition into destruction. He took his own life 6 months after the bankruptcy filing. The room didn't just go quiet, it went historic. The silence held weight measured not in dollars, but tragedy, class cruelty, generational ego, and the sound absence makes when an empire accidentally meets truth. Sloan's voice trembled with old rage and unfiltered orphaned anger. You destroyed him. You destroyed my entire family. But Malcolm Underwood, king of moral precision, CTO of LegalWarfare.com, stepped forward before anyone could accuse him of tone softening. We won a business competition legally, ethically, by every standard that matters, he said evenly, like a man reciting financial scripture audited by God himself. Your father made choices we had no control over or responsibility for. Malcolm Underwood then pivoted the narrative dagger directly toward accountability's doorstep. But what you did to our sister, the systematic humiliation, the physical assault on a pregnant woman, those were your choices, and choices have consequences. Each word was louder than the applause had been, because applause is compulsory when dynasties author it. But justice speaks voluntarily, and microphones always sound better when the oppressed finally finds one. Richard Montgomery III, CEO of Silence Brokerage at Montgomery Development Group, tried to sober the room back into denial. This is harassment. You can simply land on my private property and threaten my family with baseless accusations. Malcolm Underwood raised an eyebrow, unimpressed, barely threatened. He extracted the one document Richard assumed nobody carried, a merger agreement between Montgomery Development Group and Underwood Global Logistics, printed by contractual inevitability, executed in 2019 and stored like evidence-backed betrayal text message history. The contract itself, now delivered to Richard by sibling hands, revealed an attempted sale for $800 million. Reputation dilution operations via acquisition logic, Richard decided to rewrite via love simulation, performed only for ROI access. Brianna Underwood Montgomery stepped forward, heart physically kicking like her baby on the marble floor hours earlier. Her voice cracked once, not mechanically, not dramatically, but maternally. "Richard, is that true?" Richard couldn't look at the contract. He could only look through it. At this point, wealthy men don't deny truth. They dodge it. But sibling investigations arrive calibrated, not delegated, and the terrace was not ballroom safe anymore. It was open-air courtroom territory patrolled by phone cameras that do not wait for reputations to finish lying before recording. Now entered 3 vehicles announcing justice, not ceremony. NYPD patrol car Ford Explorer sirens shattered the scene. The optics were forensically vile, public birthing of consequences. Iris Coleman, seasoned detective of the NYPD, emerged, handcuffs cold enough to rewrite reputations instead of heredity. Lenox Hill Hospital would soon perform ultrasounds. But the terrace was performing something rarer: lineage confrontation. Gloria Montgomery, oldest shareholder of generational entitlement, co-defendant of the upcoming lawsuit, named by investigators unafraid of 7-acre lawns or 7 generation. Bloodline delusions, stood now powerless enough to threaten schools instead of stages. "Then I will ensure your child never knows a moment's peace." But the Underwood brothers were not there to bargain for peace. They were there to bankrupt the myth that silence is consequence-free infrastructure. Because before Sloane's kick connected to Brianna under her husband's philanthropic roof, Brianna had delivered 862 babies ethically, and Underwood Global had shipped 800 million in contracts ethically. The difference? Sloane practiced destruction. Brianna practiced delivery, and delivery scales. Destruction collapses. The terrace descended into complete chaos. Dynasty Air denied fairness earlier, but now the air was witness-filled and court-written. CNN breaking news-level energy filled each glowing window of the Hamptons estates nearby. Brianna Underwood Montgomery didn't escape humiliation. She weaponized its time stamp, because humiliation delayed is only humiliation when the victim collapses first. But Brianna Underwood Montgomery stood, inhaled, dialed siblings, reclaimed microphones, hugged Maya at the catering tent, and rewrote legacy contaminants into courtroom co-defendants. The nation was watching now, not because the rich learned morality, but because a pregnant black woman refused to dissolve when the silence expected her to. She found a microphone, and she said who mattered more. "That's the best news I've heard in a very long time," Brianna whispered to Maya, hugging her victory not tied to Montgomery influence, but Underwood lineage recalibration. Behind her, the retold empire was crumbling, mid-card cycle. In front of her, a child was holding her hand in a delivery room ecosystem built by Brianna herself. Not the Montgomery dynasty accountants writing fairy tales for tax benefits. Brianna Underwood Montgomery's legacy had not been diluted. It had been redirected, through lineage, through strategy, through survival optics built not by wealth, but refusal to disappear. Women who had been beaten, controlled, manipulated, emotionally disassembled by partners who swore love was their motive. Sloane Whitfield started seeing the patterns. Patterns she had once applauded. Patterns she had helped sharpen into weapons. Patterns she had used on another woman. So she wrote an unfiltered essay published on Medium titled "The Monster I Chose to Become." It detonated online, not because the world forgave her, but because the world had almost never witnessed honesty that raw. "I told myself I wanted justice for my father," she wrote, "but I became a different kind of abuser. Brianna Underwood didn't destroy my family. I destroyed hers. It's something I'll carry forever." Gloria Montgomery's collapse, however, was a lonely thunderstorm. The society that once toasted her name now avoided her presence like a fever. Boards erased her. Registers deleted her. Friends vanished mid-sentence. She first sold the Hamptons estate to drown in legal expenses, then the Manhattan townhouse, then the priceless art collection. She ultimately landed in a 1-bedroom apartment in Jersey City, the same woman who mocked Brianna's Newark roots, now cooking her own meals in a smaller kingdom than Brianna once lived in. Loved without servants, but never without warmth or identity. At 68, she cooked, scrubbed, existed with no audience, and had no servant left to blame. Richard Montgomery testified against his own mother in an 11-hour deposition marathon. Receipts, recorded calls, emails, transactions, all handed over. His cooperation earned legal leniency, but nothing could resuscitate his identity in the public eye. Montgomery Development Group voted to remove him as CEO before dusk that same evening. He kept 15% ownership, enough to live, not enough to influence. Therapy twice a week became his new boardroom. Every week, unraveling why he witnessed a pregnant woman get kicked and whispered silence instead of roaring fight. He paid child support on schedule. He never negotiated compassion. He never once asked for custody. Deep down, Richard realized his reputation wasn't assassinated. It was self-inflicted honesty. Detective Iris Coleman rose from detective to lieutenant, not because the scandal pushed her forward, but because truth crowned her. She formed the NYPD's first dedicated unit, probing domestic abuse inside empires padded by wealth, where silence was the favored currency. She collected applause, not as validation, but as warning. Named Officer of the Year, she delivered 7 words America wouldn't forget. I hesitated once. I'll never hesitate again. Then came Hope Amara Underwood. A rainy March Tuesday, 7 pounds 2 ounces. A scream louder than injustice. Lungs that announced triumph, not tragedy. Malcolm Underwood cried without diplomacy. Desmond Underwood bought out the hospital gift shop like a man making amends through plush animals. Isaac Underwood already built a trust before the birth certificate ink dried. But Brianna Underwood raised her daughter with purpose, not entitlement. 6 months post-brunch war, the Hope Amara Women's Health Center opened in Newark, the same neighborhood where Brianna once survived winters without heat, but never without love. Free care, mental support, job training, prenatal aid for women, stitched back together after being told they were disposable. The construction was bankrolled by Underwood Global, but the soul was Brianna Underwood's fingerprints. She held babies, comforted shaking mothers, ran corridors of hope personally. At the United Nations stage, 23 million watched her speech. Money doesn't shield abuse. It just brands it luxury. Racism doesn't disappear with wealth. It learns manners. Protection isn't institutions. It's humans who reject silence. 1 year after Richard's legacy funeral, he mailed a letter. Not an apology. He knew theatrics only belong at redemption arc funerals. A plain request. 1 meeting. 1 glance. 1 truth. Brianna Underwood didn't reply immediately. 3 months later, a photo arrived. Hope, laughing in sunlight. On the back, written not in revenge, but author's precision. She has your eyes. Prove you deserve them. So he did. 3 days a week. Every week.
Ow.
No bargaining for mercy. Only building a man who wouldn't allow a woman to collapse under boots again. Outside the Brianna Whitfield Literacy Foundation, the sign reads, Hope Amara Women's Health Center. Because silence is never safety. Brianna Underwood stands at the doorway holding her daughter, the sunrise painting them gold. Behind her, her 3 brothers, men holding a $12 billion orbit, bickering loudly whose lap the baby lands on. Malcolm Underwood smirks softly. You never needed rescue. Brianna Underwood smiles, unshaken, but I'm glad you came anyway. The empire burned. Hope read louder. Love stayed. Silence lost. If you've ever been silenced, this is for you. If you've ever watched someone be silenced, you owe honesty. Share, subscribe, and answer loudly. Why did I stay silent? This was Fate Tales, where truth writes revenge better than rage ever could. If you want more untold stories of power, betrayal, revenge, redemption, justice, like, share, and subscribe to Fate Tales. Remember, silence is never strength. Voices are, you said. Is her husband black in?